What is up, everybody? It's Vicious here, and we're watching this video that my good friend Jax Vex sent to me because he thought I'd find it interesting. It's Death of a Fighting Game, DNF Duel by DL. Urian. And this is, I don't know, like the beginning of the video threw me off, especially because not even the beginning of the video, just clicking onto the video threw me off because in the video's description, like he don't even add, he don't even. I'm assuming it's a he this time, but in this video he doesn't even like put hashtag DNF Duel as hashtag Guilty Gear Strive. I don't know. Maybe it's just an automatic thing. I don't know. But let's look and see what DL Urian has to say.
DNF Duel is a fighting game that initially had a lot of hype surrounding it. Right from the get-go, people took notice of the flashy visuals and interesting character design. The beta for the game was also very well received, with many YouTubers and players alike enjoying the game. But even early on,
this is already like here's the thing I'll say. Like, that's accurate. A lot of people like the beta. A lot of people were having a good time, and I'm a little worried because of this right here, this whole thing with Maximilian. And this is one reason why I say I don't enjoy Maximilian content, because I think Maximilian being Maximilian holds a lot of power in the FGC, right? Like, every developer sends him an early copy of everything. He is, giving copies to show off. He's that guy, right? And I'm not mad that he's that guy. The thing is, I feel like with the power that he does have, he can sway things in different directions. And I've said this multiple times. I said this when Persona 4 Ultimax came out, which is when I stopped watching his channel altogether, because I learned about Maximilian with Marvel vs. Capcom 3 Fate of Two Worlds. That's vanilla for you guys who don't know. Not Ultimate, this is the first version. And he had the Assist Me series. Really cool, interesting series. Very informative, very cool. But then again, he started branching out. I knew that he was a Street Fighter and Marvel player. Then he started playing games like Persona, Blaze Blue, and the video content I felt like was a little lowbrow. Like, let's rate the Super. I don't like that because some of it's like very disrespectful to the design that the devs put in the game. Like, some of those things aren't bad, but he makes them worse than what they are. And, stuff like that. Like Persona 4 Ultimax, he loved Persona 4 Arena. Ultimax came out, which is arguably such a way better game because it has a lot more characters, a lot more mechanics, and new moves, all sorts of stuff, and he said that he wasn't really he liked the game, but whatever. I think he went on to KI after that. Newsflash, by the way, he was sponsored by the people that made Killer Instinct, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, he was like, the game is okay, and I feel like that sort of set a precedent for some gamers. Like, you know what, yeah, that game is okay. And now we know Ultimax is the shit. You know what I mean? He's hosted tournaments for Ultimax. You know what I mean? But let's see what this dude says. This video is going to drag on a long time. I like to extrapolate details.
certain people were starting to worry about the long-term health of the game. And unfortunately, they were right. These days,
let's see. Flobe. Ultimate Chicken Horse. Wait, what is this? Okay.
the game struggles to reach past 100 players, with the most dedicated players being regulated to using Discord to find matches.
That's not true. Alright, so here's the thing. There are some people that have, and me and Jax Vex was actually messaging me about this. For those people that are fucking woefully unaware, there are a lot of top players that get into private lobbies. Now, private lobbies don't show up, and a lot of the times in the earlier days, they would just go through Discord and get private lobbies and just fight each other. That's how that worked. And that's how it worked through the majority of this game's lifespan, right? Now, me and Jax Vex, both of us, we have been getting on DNF Duel. Both of us, you could see our lobbies every day. They were open. We were open, and we would play pretty much anybody. If somebody had some Asian characters in their name, I might not play them, and I have played them before. They've one quit me. You know what I mean? And you know, you could see us playing, and you could see like our rooms getting filled up to a certain degree. Now it depends on what time frame we're talking about. We're talking about 4 months after launch. Like you might see 4 people in our lobby. If you're talking about 6 months, you might see 2 or 3 of us, you know. And then we started like branching off and doing our own lobbies because it was me. I don't know how much he was making lobbies, but I know for sure I was making lobbies. Now, did I have to check Discord for that? No. It unfortunately does have a low player base, but you know what? If I just put a lobby up, or even if I go to ranked, I can get a match pretty soon in ranked. But if I just put a lobby up, it might be a long time. I'm not going to lie to you. It has a low player base. But saying that I need to go to Discord, like, no. People have freely joined my lobby that I've never met before, you know? And that's on Steam. PSN is worse, but Steam, you could host a lobby and somebody will come to it.
But how did we get here? How did this game die so quickly? To answer that question, we need to go back to before the game's release. Although a minor reason for the game's failure, it's important that we mention the advertising. Arc System Works, the company responsible for the game, regularly released trailers for the game's characters, as well as released a beta to encourage discussion and hype surrounding the game. However, if you want to generate a lot of hype surrounding a game these days, it's going to take a lot more than that. A good comparison is Street Fighter 6. Not only does Capcom release character trailers, they've also been showing off developer matches, speaking at various events on the game, as well as releasing 2 closed betas with full training mode access.
This seems a little silly to me because, like, right after Urian mentions that, you know, you need to do a lot more than that, he mentions that there was 2 closed betas. And DNF Duel had 2 or 3 open betas. So anybody with a PlayStation could play the DNF Duel beta, right? There was no Steam beta, but there was the PSN betas. And anybody could play that. Anybody could play that. There was a decent amount of advertisement on the game. I would say the advertisement for DNF Duel, in my personal opinion, was better than Street Fighter 6 because they had a trailer every week. Those who have been following me know that I was waking up before work or before bed. I will wait for a trailer, and I knew when that trailer was going to come out because the game, although it has 16 characters, there was several times where they actually weekly had a trailer. And I was like, I can't wait to see who they put next. I can't wait to see what happens. Yada, yada, yada. You know, that was hype to me. I'm not saying Street Fighter isn't hype, but we don't even know when we're going to get a character trailer for Street Fighter half the time. We had that massive leak, and that was fine. We had that massive leak, but I feel like the time between the leaks and the time between the actual trailers has been filled up by people just hating on DNF Duel and telling us that the devs are lazy and shit, you know. In between all this time of the leaks, you know, and not seeing nothing, they'll release 3 characters at a time, 100%. Like, I remember when DJ got a trailer and he had like a 5-second gameplay clip, you know, and that's good. But, you know, also in comparison, I had hands-on with this game. I still don't even know how Street Fighter 6 feels. You know what I mean? Most people don't. Most people are going to get to that game, though. I can guarantee you that.
This gives content creators a lot more content to create commentary on, and DNF...
Listen, let me tell you this, and I say this as a content creator. Fuck content creators. Can we get this in the hands of the people? Like, I need to play Street Fighter 6 because I want to play and see how it feels. People say the DNF Duel has repetitive combos. The most famous combo I've seen on Street Fighter 6 involves Guile doing the same action multiple times. Let me see if I can pull that up. I think this is it. Hey, remember when people say that DNF Duel has repetitive combos? I want you to show them this video. Take that, Ryu, fucking idiot. I'm sorry. The whole reason I showed you that clip is just because, like, I had to slide that in there because people will talk about the combos still, but I understand we were talking about something else. Let's get back into it.
Duel in comparison just didn't cut it. It also doesn't help that Dungeon Fighter Online, the game that DNF Duel is based on, is a game that is popular outside of most regions of the world. It's really only popular in Korea and in some other parts of Asia, meaning that for many people, this was the first introduction to the franchise for them. Unlike with other ArcSys titles like Dragon Ball FighterZ, which uses the immensely popular Dragon Ball series that is known worldwide as a foundation for the game.
What about Grand Blue Fantasy Versus? Did this guy have a video on Grand Blue Fantasy Versus? Because, you know, that's not like a super popular series outside of Japan.
This game is pretty much only known in select regions of the world. Alright, so ArcSys didn't do a great job of generating hype surrounding the game, but
that's just not true. They did a pretty okay job up until like the what was it, the last 9 months of like the launch window. Like up until like the last like couple months, they did a pretty decent job. I thought, you know, people were pretty happy about it. The only thing that people didn't like was in the trailers, they didn't show real combos, which is why I said recently in the Spectre trailer that it's called the skill trailer, Spectre skill trailer. They're not showing you combos. I don't think that's a good idea. So with that, I'll say they didn't do a good job necessarily getting the trailers down, but other than that, like, I don't know what else people want. People want this hype, and they can't ever tangibly say what it is. Why are people hyped for Tekken 8? They haven't showed us any, like, extra modes. I haven't seen Paul with a bowling ball in his hand. Project L, is Project L going to have this crazy mode where you get to fly with your characters? I don't know. And that's no shade on either one of those games. I'm sure they're going to be excellent.
what about the game itself? As someone who played the game on day one with a buddy of mine, we quickly realized how flawed and unfun the game actually was.
I'm sorry, but how the fuck am I supposed to not tilt when I'm watching myself get hit for about 60 seconds? 60 seconds! Hello?
That wasn't even that great of a combo. Like, I don't understand what I was supposed to glean from that besides, you know, they just don't like being comboed. Like, this is a fighting game player, right? This dude has played Guilty Gear Strive, and it makes me wonder if Strive was like their entry point to fighting games, because there are longer combos than what's been in DNF Duel. Like, there are some loop combos in like Skullgirls. There are some combos in that was it that fucking, this is like reaching back, but that fucking God, what is that? Kenshiro game. I forget what that series is called because I never really watched it. But there's that. In Tekken, you get hit so much in some combos that it'll be 2 combos to kill you with some characters. Blaze Blue has some long combos too. You ever seen Hazama in Overdrive? This motherfucker hits you with the same snake multiple times over and over and over and over and over and over. You know? DNF Duel has some long combos, but again, like Dragon Ball FighterZ, he just mentioned Dragon Ball FighterZ earlier. I just played that shit the other day. You want to know something about Dragon Ball FighterZ? It has very long combos too.
Yeah.
And Marvel vs. Capcom 3 and Infinite and so on and so forth. Any 2D fighting game that is anime has long combos. I don't know what this is, man. Except Strive. Strive has more tame combos, but Strive, you get a combo done to you, you're dead.
Oh my god.
No, this is where I don't play fighting games.
I feel like you would have been alive after that. That's the thing.
Wow. See, this is like a bad showcasing of why a game is bad, because this person doesn't even play fighting games. What are you doing, like, making an example of them? I would be mad that I got my my footage uploaded like this.
I really wouldn't have. I'm actually uninstalling the game and stuff right now.
For those who don't know, I have a podcast mate. His name is Anubis. I don't make him play fighting games with me. I play Grand Blue Fantasy Versus with him, and I play Fighters with him. And, you know, while he played Fighters, he stopped playing because, you know, People who don't play fighting games do real bitch made things. I don't know if you guys know this. Like they like putting the controller down and they like doing other shit because they're getting their ass beat. You know, it's not for everybody.
Like, this is just pissing me off. Like, the amount of times I rage quit in 4 hours.
On launch day, this game had a lot of problems with it that mainly stemmed from the lack of content, as well as extremely problematic balance issues that generated a lot of anger surrounding the game. The game's content was, and still is, very bare bones in nature. It features a full story mode, however it's quite low quality and it often uses written dialogue instead of cinematic elements to tell the story.
This person never played an Arc Sys game before. So the launch for DNF Duel was actually great because there was a lot of people playing. You know, like for as much shit as people were talking, dude, I can make a room, right? And I was thinking, this is an anime game. This is low key. Normally in games like that, you can make like an open lobby and like another person or two might join and you could like still have your friend join, right? That didn't happen for DNF Duel the same way it didn't happen for Guilty Gear Strive, the same way it didn't happen for Dragon Ball FighterZ, because Dragon Ball FighterZ changed the landscape. When I made a room in DNF Duel and I said, hey, I got a room open, why don't you join, friend who I want to play specifically, the room filled up so faster than they could actually like open the game up and then go into my room. So I had to make another room. You know what I mean? Like, the game was pretty popular at first. I don't know where this notion comes from that the game was just a failure out the gate. And also this dig on the story is like terrible because, okay, so Guilty Gear and Dragon Ball FighterZ, I would say, are like the most high effort that Arc Sys has done like for story because they are fully animated for the most part. And you know, they use the character models, etc., etc. But this isn't bad. This is art, right? So this is good art. There's good scenes like this. And this is how Persona worked a lot. Well, not Persona, but BlazBlue and Persona had like moving, like they had characters. Like it's art of the characters, and they'll have like different facial expressions and etc., etc. And they do that with DNF Duel, but they also mix the art in too. You know, so it's like Soul Calibur in that sense. I don't know why people hate storytelling like this, but it's really lame, especially considering that this isn't a series that is meant to have a very long story. This is a fighting game spinoff. This is a fighting game spinoff, and at the end of this, there is a tournament, and people will win. You know what I mean? People will win, and then they will like get some ending or something along those lines, and that'll be it. I think that this critique, I guess you could say that it's tiresome that it happens more often than not in fighting games, but this is something that people like. Like, I don't understand the dig.
The plot itself is also very bland in general. And
Fighting game spinoff.
It's extremely short, with most playthroughs not even lasting over an hour. The
Good.
game also featured a combo trial.
Not everybody likes long stories.
Which is a cool feature, but when you compare it to the content that we'll be receiving in Street Fighter 6, for example, it's just not enough. I mean,
it's a combo trial. You know, this is another problem in fighting games. The people that take games like this and expect God of War Ragnarok, or they want an open world game. They want Horizon Forbidden West in fighting game format. And unfortunately, you're not going to get that because that's a dumb ask. I'm just gonna say that it's a dumb ask. Like, what do you want? Like, you want them to make a whole different genre of a game within a game. You know, I don't see these complaints levied at Tekken 7. Why? Because you have a fucking bowling ball that you can throw down a lane. So what? In Tekken 7, you're missing team attack, you're missing time attack, you're missing pair play, and all that shit that used to be in Tag 2.
Capcom is giving us an expansive world tour mode where we can explore an entire city.
Yeah, and it looks horrible, bro. It looks horrible. This looks generic.
Other players roaming around.
Like, I'm sorry. Like, people act like this is hype. This looks generic. This looks like that fucking Naruto Shinobi Strikers bullshit game that came out. Like, you make your own character and they have moves from other characters. Why don't you just fucking use the characters you have? Now, I understand. Here's the thing. I can compartmentalize and I can say that, you know what? People like this. So I can step back. But hearing him say all that shit about DNF Duel and like the content that it doesn't have, and looking at the content you like, you don't really want to play a fighting game that's meant to just, be you versus someone else. Which means you don't really want to play a fighting game. You want to play, I don't know, Wario Warehouse or some shit.
There's an extra mode battle, which has goofy and fun, unique rules that apply to the match, like a bull that runs through the stage at random time. And
that looks stupid.
Arcade cabinets in the Battle Hub area that let you play old arcade-style Street Fighter titles in the new game.
Man, that's funny. You could just buy Street Fighter Anniversary Collection. So basically, they're charging you again to buy Anniversary Collection.
Setting the bar for content at launch.
You see how I can flip the script on that?
Just couldn't live up to the expectations. There simply wasn't enough to do other than play online.
Well, I mean, sure, but I can guarantee you this, and this is going to be controversial. This game is going to be more complicated. DNF Duel is going to be more complicated than Street Fighter 6, complex, and have an easier ceiling for people to reach for than Street Fighter 6. Because Street Fighter 6, at its heart, is a footsie game. Yeah, you got more combos now, but there's still other shit you're gonna have to deal with, like footsies and just the way Street Fighter works, right? You won't be able to just press buttons. That's my thing, and that's fine. People like that, but it's gonna be a harder game for people. I understand it's gonna sell more because of Street Fighter, but I just need to get that out of the way. Like, when we're looking at this game, you're gonna get more combo creativity in DNF Duel than you will in Street Fighter 6, and honestly, there's going to be more situations to deal with in DNF Duel that are more interesting.
In my opinion, though, the main reason why DNF Duel failed had to do with the mechanics of the game. DNF Duel has the worst mechanics of any fighting game I have seen possibly ever.
How?
And it was even worse on launch than it is now.
How?
To understand why, we need to look at the subgenre of fighting game that DNF Duel belongs to. It's an anime fighting game, which typically means that the game will have long combos, extremely fast.
You just complained about that earlier.
And overall, just being a lot crazier than other.
You don't have to have extremely fast movement to be an anime game. Skullgirls is an anime game, and I think how many characters in Skullgirls have a run? Isn't it just dashes? Like, yeah, there are quick dashes, but you don't move as fast across the screen as, say, like Under Night and Birth. Like, there's different varying degrees of fast movement. Less honest. What the fuck?
Fighters. The problem with DNF on a fundamental level is that it delivers on some of these elements, but is lacking in other areas, making the game's identity confusing. For example...
Could you tell me? Yeah, exactly. I need an example.
Identity confusing. For example, like a lot of anime fighters, DNF Duel has a lot of extremely large buttons and moves.
And it has Gatlings. You forgot to mention Gatlings. Guilty Gear Strive doesn't really have Gatlings like that.
That can control almost the entire screen, allowing a lot of characters to lock you down from far away.
Yeah, that's a playstyle that's in anime fighting games. Like, you don't think Nagori Yuki has big-ass normals? You don't think his 2HS is a fucking big normal? You moron? What is this video? I'm sorry, I hate to get disrespectful, but lord.
Although these kinds of buttons would usually be unacceptable in a
Oh my god.
based fighting game like Street Fighter, it's usually fine in an anime game because they have powerful movement options. Strive, for example, has air dashing,
what's going
air
on?
blocking, and super jumping. DNF Duel, on the other hand,
let's go back here. Sorry, I don't know what happened there.
Unacceptable in a footsie-based fighting game like Street Fighter, it's usually fine in an anime game because they have powerful movement options. Strive, for example, has air dashing, air blocking, and super jumping. DNF Duel, on the other hand, has none of these. I don't know whose idea it was to...
Well, DNF Duel has a dodge roll, so, it's technically better than an air dash, if you want me to be all the way honest, because you get invul out of the roll. You can roll past something and completely counter someone. You can roll past something, and not only that, but you get more guard cancels in DNF Duel, like, throughout a match than you do in a game like, let's say Guilty Gear Strive, right? In Dragon Ball Fighters, you get a ton because you get so much. You get 7 bars a meter, and DNF Duel costs 100% of your meter, which I have some reservations about. But you get more guard cancels and you get more rolls. I'm not saying that the defense in DNF Duel is perfect. I would say the defense in DNF Duel is the thing that needs to be worked on more than the offense. If you ask me, there's too many instances where characters can kill you, specific characters, not as many characters as he's saying. Like, for instance, Enchantress versus Ghostblade. That's a bad matchup for Ghostblade once Enchantress gets him locked down. Because guess what? He's not going to be able to dodge. She's going to grab him. She's going to be in one spot. The bear is going to be in the other. It's a problem, and that's something that I recognize. But if I'm to recognize that, I need you to recognize that Guilty Gear Strive's faultless defense mechanic drains from the super meter. So I could say, well, in most games, when you have a defensive mechanic, like in Marvel vs. Capcom 3 or Blaze Blue, like where you have advancing guard in Marvel vs. Capcom 3 and you have barrier in Blaze Blue, it doesn't draw on a resource for making combos. I could be a dickhead and be like that, but I'm not going to do that. Because I recognize nuance in fighting games, and I know that not every anime fighting game is a monolith.
Not include air dashing or air blocking in a game that is this volatile.
You can air dash with a Dragon Knight
and crazy.
And Spectre.
But it just doesn't make sense from a gameplay point of view. Anime fighters also have usually long, drawn-out pressure sequences and block strings that are extremely powerful and difficult to block.
Man, how dare you make a video like this and show Happy Chaos?
However, the game also has a guard meter, meaning that there were a lot of characters on launch that could easily guard break you by forcing you to block a giant pressure sequence.
Hey, this video came out 3 days ago, but you know what? I understand he's talking about the launch, but not everybody was playing Striker to this efficiency. People make it sound like Striker was just like wrecking everybody online. And dude, I was there. There weren't that many Strikers doing that.
With Striker being the most notorious for this. This felt extremely unfair to play against for most people.
Then don't play against Striker.
Stop playing the game.
Why don't you just kick that person out of the room or go to a different room?
Defensive options to counteract
or get off the fucking arcade cabinet. I don't understand that.
Since buffed the rolling mechanic, but on release it was horrible. It just did not work defensively, and it would even...
I don't like that take because the roll did work defensively. It just didn't work as good as it should have, Like, you could still roll things. You could roll Ranger shots. You could roll Vanguard's long, big-ass fucking attacks. You could roll Crusader's big-ass attacks and take advantage of punishing them. But, it's way better now, of course.
Sometimes result in you being punished for using it. We're just getting started with the plethora of bad...
There's no such thing as a fighting game where you have a roll that's just invincible, I don't think, right? Like in Grand Blue Fantasy Versus, when you roll, you don't recover into blocking. That's ridiculous.
Mechanics that this game has, though. Awakening is DNF Duel's comeback mechanic. Essentially, once you're below 30% of your life total...
And they're changing this, by the way.
Two things. One is an Awakening passive that gives you a buff depending on what character you're playing for the duration that you're in Awakening. And the second is your Awakening Super, which is a super move that deactivates your Awakening state for the rest of the round once it's used. This mechanic was intended to be used in a way that made you choose between using a super for some extra damage or keeping your Awakening passive to change your character. The issue was, some characters had Awakening passives that made them so broken that there wasn't really a reason to use your super unless you knew you were going to win the round.
Yeah, the one character, Hitman, and I would say Striker too. And Berserker. I would say those 3 characters, but that's unique to them, and that's fine. It's okay if they want to change it like that. As a matter of fact, hold on a second, let me pause. Had to take a phone call. But I think what I was saying was, you can, I don't understand why people want this game to, have characters not be unique and then have them be unique at the same time. If Hitman didn't have this ability, in which I think that it should be nerfed to the point where he can't DP and then do this attack, because that's way ridiculous. Like, you basically get a way to conversion cancel out of a DP at that point, and that's something that's a conversation that could be had. But I find this so funny because in Marvel vs. Capcom 3, Dark Phoenix had this fucking comeback mechanic where if she had, what was it, 5 bars? Was it 3 or 5 bars? Where she would basically buff herself so much. She would do one buff. I think she'd go into Dark Phoenix mode, and then she would go into X Factor. And what this would do would be like she could heal herself, right? I think she healed herself in Dark Phoenix mode, and X Factor made her heal like twice as fast. So that was like doubly bad, right? But also she's like 3 times as strong. So if you don't kill Dark Phoenix at the beginning of the game, Dark Phoenix will kill everybody on your team because she does so much chip damage on vanilla MVC3 that it's almost impossible to beat her unless you're like crazy good, right? But people still love Marvel vs. Capcom 3. They find no fault in it. You know, Izanami has ribcage, and that shit is the entire match, right? Arakune, when he hits you with curse, bugs are going to bug you to death. You know, we don't talk about, you know, that shit as often as we do with Hitman, right? And Shattering Strike sucks. Is it safe on block? Yes. Can you roll through it? Yeah, you've always been able to roll through it and counter it. After, what is it? I think it's like 2 moves he can do it and not be safe. It's like not a real string or whatever. And there are like 2 special moves he does where it is a safe string. You know what I mean? Or a block string. Let's just continue. Hold on. Let's just go.
Whereas other characters had passives that
reduce white damage received when guarding. So basically that reduces chip damage.
frankly felt very useless a lot of the time. This usually meant that there was only one right option
I think.
when you were in Awakening. You didn't really have a choice all that much. Now, let's talk about conversions. DNF Duel has a gray life system. A portion of your existing life total is turned into gray life when you take damage. This gray life can then be spent to perform a conversion, which cancels you out of whatever action you're currently doing at the cost of all of your gray life. Conversions can be used for combo extensions and pressure mostly.
Let's just go ahead and preface whatever he's about to say with this is a mechanic that is very I don't know how to say it. It's very intrinsic with ArcSys games. You have Persona, Blaze Blue, and Guilty Gear that have all used cancels in the past, right? Be it Roman cancel, rapid cancel, or one more cancel. That's basically this game's one more cancel. A lot of people don't make use of this like they should, by the way.
Issue though is that it always used up all of your gray life instead of a set amount. This meant that if you had a lot of gray life, it was basically pointless to do a conversion, as it would most likely cost you the round. Whereas if you only had a sliver of gray life, it was always worth it. This doesn't really make sense in my opinion. I think it should have always used a set amount of gray life instead of the whole bar, and the way it was set up allowed a character like
Well, here's the thing and why that's not such a great idea. I'm going to be more respectful about that. So if it would use a set amount each time, you wouldn't have combos, basically, right? Because let's say we have Ghostblade, right? We see how much white life he has. Let's say it only took like a little bit of white life, right? Let's say it took this much white life. Then, yeah, he would be able to do multiple conversion cancels, but why would you give that power to Ghostblade? You know, you could jump in the air. He could jump in the air, do his jumping M, conversion cancel, and then he can conversion cancel like 3 overhead attacks on you while he's summoning the Ghostblade, and that would just break your guard. You have to take so many mechanics out or like change things so much. You know what I mean? Especially if Berserker didn't have that much meter and he couldn't get out of that string, he would just be stuck like that. You know. Same thing with Inquisitor. Why would I want Inquisitor to do like 5 cancels when she has the wheel? Like, do you want this to be an anime game or not? And here's the thing. There's probably a way to work it in there, but I like the way it's set up because, yeah, it causes a risk-reward type situation. Like, do I want to take off like minimum like 5% of my life? I think it's 5%. Minimum like 5% of my life so I can do a bigger combo than I was going to do without it? Or do I want to take 90% of my life to get, 10% more damage? Like, just use your common sense there, And if you're in Awakening, that's like a prime position. Like, let's say he had this much life, right? And his white life got down to here, and he's healing. He's in Awakening. Why would you want to, like, go back and take all your life?
Berserker, for example, who had easy access to gray life whenever he wanted, pumping out conversions all the time. Whereas for most people, they weren't really used all that much. The last
Also, you leaving out the part that Berserker has to sacrifice his life all the way up until Awakening. Now, after the Grand Patch, it doesn't matter that much to him because he can get all that life back while being in Awakening. Beforehand, if he was in Awakening, he couldn't do his loops anymore.
mechanic I want to touch on are the simple inputs. I personally don't have an issue against simple inputs in fighting games, but I think that the way they are handled here didn't really make too much sense. DNF Duel's inputs can be performed either by pressing a single button plus a direction, or by doing a motion input. This method of having two possible ways of doing an input is not new. Grand Blue Fantasy Versus also does this. The difference is that in Grand Blue, doing a motion input will let you use the special...
I cannot believe this is the first time he's mentioning Grand Blue Fantasy Versus, and DNF Duel has more combos than Grand Blue Fantasy Versus, and more possibilities, and more setups, and more things synonymous with an anime game.
The difference is that in Grand Blue, doing a motion input will let you use the special move almost immediately again, whereas if you press a single button, you need to wait for the move to come back up, almost like a cooldown system from a MOBA game like League of Legends.
Isn't it also like the EX version of the move too? Like, is he leaving that part out?
Move to come back up, motion input, almost immediately.
Let's look at that again.
Whereas if you press a single button.
So that's the single button, right? That's the EX version of the move. When you do the EX version of a move in Grand Blue Fantasy Versus, it allows for extra situations that you wouldn't normally get with the other moves. So like Lancelot, which is a character I used in Grand Blue Fantasy Versus, he has this move, what is it? I think it's like forward what is it? LMH, right? So if you do L, it doesn't do anything unless you do counter hit, I think. M is the same way, and H is the EX version. So with the EX version, it launches you in the air regardless, I think, if I remember correctly. So the EX version is doing a lot for you. That's why they drain it so you can't use it immediately. So when you do the easy input, which I don't remember this because I didn't do easy inputs, but when you do the easy input and you do the EX, you're using the best version of the move, right?
To wait for the move to come back up. Almost like a cooldown system.
Yeah, it is a cooldown system.
In DNF Duel, however, the reward you get for doing motion inputs is a lot less meaningful. DNF Duel has an MP gauge, which is a bar that is used to cast some special moves. Doing the motion input will make the time it takes for the bar to start recovering a little bit shorter. That's it. No damage increase.
That's good though.
No additional properties. No speed to the actual recovery of the bar itself. Nothing. This made the game feel immediately scrubby for many people and unsatisfying to play for some veteran fighting game players. For newbies,
that doesn't make any sense. Like, all right, so he's saying that when you do the motion inputs, you don't get a reward, except you do because you get meter back faster. Because if you do he didn't even show the inputs without the motions. So when you do a special move in DNF Duel, without the motion input, it takes a second to come back. You can see this with a character like Launcher. Launcher's DP, when she does her DP in the middle of the DP because it's an attack grab, she's gaining meter back. But when you do it without the motion inputs, she doesn't start gaining meter back until the attack grab is finished. Now, what's the difference between this? Is it like that much faster? Sometimes, yeah, it could be between life or death in this game. Because if you have no meter, if you're in exhaustion, which is when you have no meter, and you're in the middle of doing a long, big-ass combo, you need that meter back as soon as possible, which is why conversion plays so heavily into the game. So you can convert your health into meter so you can get more damage in a pinch situation. Is that something that's easy to explain? No, but this dude's doing a terrible job of explaining why these mechanics work the way they do. He's just saying, I hate this mechanic because it doesn't do what I want.
It didn't really matter, sure. but it
That's like me getting on Guilty Gear Strive and getting in his community and saying, I hate Guilty Gear Strive because I can't press punch and slash together like I could in every other Guilty Gear game. I hate Guilty Gear Strive because my super meter is also my barrier.
nonetheless alienated some people. Apart from mechanics, the game's balance was also a complete mess at launch. Some
No, it
characters
wasn't.
like Swiftmaster and Hitman were immediately apparent as being top tier, while other characters like Launcher and Enchantress felt extremely underwhelming.
Well, Enchantress isn't that bad. I thought Enchantress was bad at first, but I learned through playing my friend Iconic. But can we just be realistic for a second and talk about how people saying a game is broken or busted because of two characters is fucking stupid? Alright, so BlazBlue Central Fiction is like one of the worst games ever made then because we got Carl in it. We got Carl and Izanami. And also we have 9. Tekken 6 is bad because Bob exists and so does Lars. So does Tekken Tag 2. And hey, Tekken 7 is even worse because we got Akuma and Geese. Like, when does this shit stop? I hate that people say a game is unbalanced because there's a low tier and a high tier. That's gonna happen in every single fighting game, bro.
And weak. Other characters had access to some game-breaking glitches too, like one-button infinite, touch of death combos.
Hey, that one button infinite actually got patched within like the first 2 months, I think. Actually, and the touch of death. So Lost Warrior needs this, right? Lost Warrior is considered like the worst character in the game. I had him in the unknown section in my tier list because he could TOD when he's in Awakening, which, you know, this dude has a comeback mechanic, right? He's not that great of a character, but this is his reward for being not that great of a character. If he catches you slipping, he can kill you. You know what I'm saying?
Block strings that guaranteed a guard break.
I don't know, man. Like these complaints, I understand some of them. Like, yeah, I understand Striker. She got patched, like, you know, a little bit afterwards. Like the first bigger patch this game got, they took away her strings where she could block string you with her DP. You know, you could roll that shit down. Like saying that this happening within like a 2-month period broke the game is stupid. There's TODs in Dragon Ball Fighters.
Overall, the game felt messy. It felt unfinished, unbalanced, and had a lack of content for people who wanted to
Excuse me.
outside of
Fiance was calling. But where was I? I don't know. Let's just go.
the usual online experience. The game just didn't have a lot to offer for most people. The thing is, though, a bad launch isn't necessarily an indication that a game will die. It can be a contributing factor, sure, but look at Street Fighter V, for example. That game had one of the worst launches that a fighting game has ever had, and yet now
No, it had the worst launch of like one of the top fighting games. I'll say that. Now, Street Fighter V, its launch was worse than not Dragon Ball Fighters. Well, yeah, Dragon Ball Fighters. It was worse than DNF Duel because here's the thing: people didn't even like Street Fighter V when it came out. Is it one of the top ones now? Yeah, because of a lot of support. And you know what? DNF Duel is getting support. It took a while, but listen, on Street Fighter V, there was no practice mode when the game launched, right? Street Fighter V was fucked up at launch.
nowadays it still has a sizable player base, and most people consider the game to be pretty good. At the
It's
very
also
least.
Street Fighter,
The
bro.
difference between SF5 and DNF Duel is the support that these games received from the developers.
No, the difference between them is Street Fighter V is a syndicated game and is a heralded game. It's going to have a lot of support in general. I don't know why people don't understand the difference between a known series and a series that's not known so well. You know, he mentioned it in the beginning, but like he's failing to realize that Street Fighter is going to have millions of people playing because of its household name. You know, DNF Duel's not going to have that same thing the same way BlazBlue and Persona won't.
Developer. While Street Fighter V received constant updates, new characters,
I'm sorry, not
battles,
Persona, Under Night and Birth.
modes, and more on a consistent basis, DNF Duel has received nothing since its release last year, apart from a couple balance patches that, although brought meaningful change to the game's balance and fixed many of the game's mechanical issues at launch, such as rolling, have brought no new content to the game. DNF Duel has still yet to receive a new character, game mode, or even stage. This game's content is
This was
still
made 3
identical
days
to
ago.
how it was on launch day. There's pretty much nothing new that this game has to offer.
All right, so let me just go ahead and pause this. Man, it was really interesting what that guy was talking about, how DNF Duel is not receiving anything new and how he made the video 3 days ago. I can't finish the rest of that video, and I'm sorry that, you know, if I like actually insulted him, but I don't know. When I get passionate about games, I just hate hearing like misinformation and lies being spread, because that's all it is, man. It's just lies. Like, yeah, the game has a small player base. Like, that part is true, 100%. And I'll tell anybody that. I'll tell anybody. It has a small player base, and you should get it on sale. There have been dozens of sales, and I think that the game, when the grand patch came out, a lot of people were playing. It does need updates. That part is true. And the game is going to be updated. Here's a character trailer coming out right now. You know what I mean? And it has a season pass. We're getting 3 characters before the whole year ends, and we're getting 2 more characters in this season pass in 2024. They said they plan to support the game throughout 2024. Obviously, there were some issues with the balance, and they are working on it. They're buffing everybody, etc., so on and so forth. I don't think that video was like very good at pointing out some of the problems that it actually has, though. Like when we were talking about the whole situation with the awakening techniques, and yeah, some awakening techniques are stronger than others, but then again, some characters are like really strong in general. Like Grappler is really strong. People downplay Grappler, but Grappler has armor. Grappler has armor and could take like half your life. He could 2-touch you even before the grand patch. You know what I mean? If you ran into the right Grappler. And etc., so on and so forth. But this video has gone on way too long. I'm going to go ahead and publish this, and I will catch you guys later.